Act 2.
Peterkin! Oh, Peterkin!
Maisie Grace hugged him joyously.
Who'd have thought he had it in him?
Said Nora. Gingerly, she inspected the doctor's prone form.
I say, he is only stunned, I hope.
Weed was unimpressed.
A night dreamer can't get free once you've caught him. Don't you know anything?
It was Peterkin who answered.
I don't know much,
said the simple cobbler, scratching under his papier-mâché head. But I know what you do with a night dreamer.
Of course,
Nora clapped her hands.
Take him to the Night Dreamer King.
The Night Dreamer King, her friends chorused. The tragical and comical history of Boreas and Thamia was abandoned, as the players, even Gubrius temporarily forgetting himself, linked arms and danced a merry jig. Their hearts swelled, and each one thought of their wishes that now could come true. As they danced, they sang an old song. On perihelion night, sweet perihelion night, weave a circle in the planet light that shines so bright above to bless, bless, bless your dreams of love. If their dance was clod-hopping and their voices hardly in harmony, it did not matter.
Just one thing,
said Weed, after they had flung themselves down, exhausted.
We've all heard these old stories, but what I've never known is this, just... where is the Night Dreamer King?
What? Don't you know anything? Came the reply. And again the others all turned to Peterkin, surprised. Electro-tapers shimmered in metallic corridors as Esnik dragged Rhea back to her apartments. At first, she struggled against him, but it was useless. Tight plastirope bound her wrists, and a menacing phaser jabbed into her side. Your father's right, said Esnik with a smile. Already I'm your jailer. What a pity that a wife should be so contrary.
I'm not your wife, spat Rhea. I'll never be your wife.
Silly girl. What can your cousin give you that I can't? I suppose he said you'd be Empress of Galaxis Bright one day. Ha! Could you really wish to reign there? Remember, your father left for a reason.
Shut up about father. You don't care about him. You only care about your own power. You've twisted him, changed him.
Me? What have I done but serve him well?
Antonio came here to reconcile father and the Emperor. That's why he's here, don't you realize that? And you poisoned father against him.
My dear, I think your little cousin has poison enough of his own, Esnik said playfully, pretty as his flowing blonde locks may be. They had reached Rhea's apartments. Esnik tapped a code into the lock. There was more, much more he might have said. Should he perhaps hint at the real destiny that lay in wait for the girl after their marriage? But no, all in good time. He turned back to her, smiling. Come, I can't leave you without a kiss. Rhea's eyes blazed, but the hated man only moved closer, pushing up his visor. My love, you know you can't resist me. Oh, I forgive your dalliance with Tonio. You're a weak woman, and I dare say he's persuasive. But then, so am I. What happened next was as unexpected to Rhea as to Esnik. With a swooning surrender, she found herself going weak in his arms, huddling against him, clinging to him as if to a strong, beloved protector.
My darling, she breathed, I'm sorry.
The bitter words of moments before might never have been spoken. At once, all was as Esnik desired. Delighted, he embraced the lovely girl, until suddenly she snatched the phaser from his belt and fired. He staggered back, collapsing. Firing a second blast, Rhea severed the plastirope from her wrists. With darting eyes, she looked up and down the gloomy corridor. What now? Her brow furrowed. Tonio? Oh, it was useless. She could hardly free him by herself, not with one phaser. But the Vorgon ray... The thought filled Rhea's mind, possessed it, before she could even wonder quite what it would mean. Her heart hammered. But how could she get to Tonio's lightship? Gravity Well 6 was far away. There were guards everywhere. But the answer was clear. Swiftly, she stripped off Esnik's uniform.
Doctor?
Jo scrambled to her feet. Blearily, she looked around her. She glanced under the console, as if the doctor might be hiding there. She peered through the door that led away from the control room into the inner reaches of the TARDIS. Again, she called the doctor's name. Only dimly did Jo recall the colours that had welled out of the scanner. And yet she was aware of a sense of strangeness, pulsing just beneath the surface of her mind.
"Good evening,"
said a voice. Startled, Jo spun around to see a little man, all in green, sitting up on the console, leaning back with insolent luxuriance against the glowing, transparent time rotor in the centre. A bell jingled in his jester's cap, and he swung his legs back and forth, kicking at the air with his curly-toed shoes. He raised an eyebrow.
"Who am I? You'd like to know?"
Jo burst out.
"Of course I would. How did you get in here? And where's the doctor?" "You need a doctor? Poor girl, you'd better lie down." "Not a doctor, the doctor."
Jo was more angry than alarmed. Quizzically, she looked into the little fellow's face. He appeared to be young, barely more than a boy, if, that is, he was human at all. Tiny green stars like cinders sparkled around him. The little man blinked at her, grinning foolishly. Exasperated, she turned away. It was then that Jo saw the colours in the scanner churning again. The memory flashed back to her of what had happened, and she was frightened after all.
"What are you?"
she demanded.
"First who, then what? Make up your mind."
With that, the little fellow bounded to the floor, dancing about the console. Colours swirled around him. Then strange music, as he half chanted, half sang,
"My name is Sly, and I know why you feel an apprehension, but come with me and you will see my sweet and kind intention."
To Jo, there was something almost insane about his wild caperings and high, cracking voice. But there was something more, too. A mysterious force churning into her mind, pushing her, compelling her to some frightening psychic precipice. And the thought came to her that this strange little man was not the only danger she faced. Yes, she was certain of it. He was only the agent, only the harbinger of someone, or something, far more dangerous. She put a hand to her forehead.
What do you want?" "What? No applause? Manners."
Sly skipped to the doors, and they opened to let him pass.
"Wait! Come here!"
Quite why Jo should want to catch the little man, and what she would do if she succeeded, she could hardly have explained. But catch him she must. As she stumbled into the clearing, this was her only imperative. Planet light glowed all around her, silvery and ghostly, and the strange music continued to play. Now where was Sly? Jo turned and turned again. He was sitting up on a branch, leering down at her with wolfish lips and huge glowing eyes, and then he was gone. He was dancing on a fallen log, clicking his heels and kicking high, whirling round and wheeling with his arms, cap and bells a-jingle. And then he was gone again. He was here, he was there, swinging from a hanging vine, springing from a heap of leaves, bursting from a bush, skittering around her with crazy reeling steps, pelting her with pine cones and squashy berries. And then he was nowhere. There was laughter, and Sly, on a hillock at the edge of the clearing, curled a beckoning finger. Scrambling towards him, Jo lunged, determined to grab him at last, and almost did. just when the gravity gave way beneath her feet. Crying out, she swooped into the air.
Rhea! Oh, Rhea!
Prince Tonio lay hunched by the door, his knees drawn up to his chest, his head resting on crossed arms. His cell was dark and cramped, the metal walls cold. Though there was no question of sleep, dreams still filled his troubled mind. Dreams of escape, of revenge, and of Rhea. Always Rhea. He sprang up, pacing. He thumped his fist against the metal wall. He gripped the bars of the high-slit window, gazing out at the planet that was his home, glittering like a mockery in the dark night sky.
Galaxis bright! Oh, Galaxis bright!
The golden bands at Tonio's wrists and forehead glowed as if in sympathy. But it was a cold, cheerless glow. Shuddering, he drew his robes tighter around him. Cursed, cursed be this wretched moon! Again, the young prince would have sunk down, despairing. But just then there was an electronic fizzing from the corridor. The door slid back, and a bespectacled, wild-haired old fellow in a butler's uniform shuffled in, grinning. At first, Tonio could only gaze at this unexpected visitor, gaping in an astonishment that was half joy, half alarm. He began, But the guards, let's just say they called for ale. You drugged them. A butler's privilege." The old fellow laughed and handed the prince a small silver box. "A new scrambler. I assume they confiscated yours? This should keep Esnik's thugs off your trail. Now, quick, make for the lightship." Tonio reeled, confused. "But, Rhea, I've got to set her free." "Yes, with the Vorgon ray." The prince blanched. "What? No, the threat of it, at least." Impatient, even angry, the butler spoke as if to an equal, even, perhaps, to an inferior. "Blast a mountain, sear a valley, set their precious forest ablaze. Then do you think Altero won't yield? Come, what else can you do now? Esnik has the girl in his clutches." Tonio burst out. "I'll kill him." "Yes, in the morning. But back to the lightship." For a moment, Tonio might have protested again, but all at once he softened, and his tone changed. Stepping towards the butler, he gripped the old man's shoulders and looked sadly, almost pleadingly, into the faded, rheumy eyes. "You'll come with me, please?" The butler only shook his head, saying he would slow them down. "Besides," he added, "there's still work to do here." The prince nodded with a dark solemnity, and the two men embraced, briefly but hard. And then Tonio was gone, contemptuously kicking the inert body of a guard as he rushed away down the corridor. Watching him go, the butler smiled fondly, dabbing a gnarled finger at his gathering tears. "Peterkin, how do you know?" said Maisie Grace. "Can we trust him?" hissed Weed. "He's always been a fool." "I wouldn't trust the Night Dreamer," Gubrius moaned. "What about that blue box back in the gravity well?" "He'll be using his powers on us," Nora's voice quavered. "There was evil in that box, I'm sure of it." "Shut up, all of you," snapped Maisie Grace. The imperious chambermaid was determined that none of her friends should spoil this enchanted evening. They could just all shut up. Every one of them. Still, she could not resist repeating her own question. "But Peterkin, how do you know?" The cobbler's reply was hardly clear. "I was raised on Verd, wasn't I? My father, well, he knew all the old stories." Dimly, the words floated into the doctor's mind. He felt the phaser prodding his back, and his eyes flickered open. Then he goggled, looking this way and that in the silvery, mysterious planet light. The scene was like something from a fantastic dream. Trussed up in vines, he floated through the planet-lit woods, tugged along by the swimming forms of Maisie Grace, Nora, and Weed. Bemused, he saw that the simpering chambermaid, the fat cook, and the gangling gardener still wore their silly but strangely charming costumes of princess, fairy, and mouse. Likewise, Peterkin still wore his knobbly-headed monster's mask as he swam on ahead, parting their way through the leaves and fronds and vines. Their little party might have been beneath an ocean, miraculously able to breathe. But if this were an ocean, it was like none the Doctor had encountered in all his extraordinary travels through the vastness of space and time. The voices continued, dreamy and soft.
"What about your brother?"
said Nora. The fat cook appeared to be remembering a story from long ago.
"Brother? He's got no brother,"
said Gubrius. I had one. The voice from under the knobbly head was sad. A funny little fellow he was, too. Mischievous as a boy could be, always getting into one scrape or another. I suppose that's why we lost him in the end. How can you lose a brother? Said Maisie Grace dismissively.
"He was taken," said Nora, "by the Nightdreamer King. That's what you mean, isn't it, Peterkin?"
As it happened, it was not the cobbler but the gardener who spoke next. You mean like the Duchess? Said Weed, alarmed. Their words were riddles to the Doctor, but right now he did not much care. He cleared his throat, his eyes darting sternly between his strange captors. "And where do you think you're taking me?" he asked. Behind him was Gubrius, the dour chaplain, prodding with a phaser.
"The night dreamers awake."
Gubrius sounded as if this might be grounds for giving the Doctor another blast there and then. All through their journey, through the low-gravity woods, the chaplain had been struggling with some difficulty to tug from his hair a most bothersome strand of ivy. He was scratched, itchy, and in no mood for nonsense. Peterkin only waved a carefree monster's paw. Leave him, we're nearly there." The Doctor said, "And just where is there?" "Don't answer," said Maisie Grace. "It's one of his riddles." "You're the ones with the riddles," said the Doctor. "Perhaps you'd like to explain about this Nightdreamer King, whoever he might be." Nora said, "But why does he ask what he knows?" Weed gibbered. "His questions could drive us mad." The Doctor sighed. Despite the phaser, he had little fear of these simple people, but he was worried about leaving Jo, and the TARDIS, and worried, very worried, about just how they might escape this strange moon. "It's true then about the Duchess?" Nora was saying. "She vanished, didn't she?" said Maisie Grace, "just like everyone else has vanished. Long ago, when Lady Rhea was still a little girl, it was, not that I can remember, of course," she added, running a preening hand through the wavy hair that flowed, grey and gold, about her cardboard tiara. "Ah, but such a lovely lady. And now she sleeps with the night dreamers." "Not Lady Rhea?" said the cook, misunderstanding. "No, her mother," said Maisie Grace. "Really, Nora." Peterkin interrupted them. "We're here. The cave." Evidently, they had reached another gravity well. Swiftly, their weight returned, and they found themselves gathered before a lowering, deep opening in a mossy wall of rock. Against the silvery light, the cave appeared dark and mysterious, and a dank, diffuse smell filled the air, not quite unpleasant, but decidedly strange. The Doctor screwed up his eyes, gazing into the black depths of the cave. Copious bushes and draping, willow-like trees clustered close by the ledge, rustling and shimmering ominously. Nightdreamer King. This hardly looked like the dwelling place of a monarch. "We're close to home," said Weed, looking up. "I thought we were coming this way," said Nora. The Doctor's curiosity grew. Following the upward gaze of his 5 captors, he was surprised to see a vast metallic castle glinting in the planet light high above the woods, capping the apex of the sheer rising rocks. Now, that looked more like where a monarch might live. So what then is this cave? I suppose there's no point in asking, the doctor muttered. There was not. Excitedly, his captors broke into discussion amongst themselves, declaiming about the dreams they hoped would come true, now that the Night Dreamer King must grant their wishes. Their dreams ranged from the extravagant to the forlorn. Maisie Grace, lowly chambermaid no more, would find herself transformed into a famous actress. Nora the cook would open her own little tavern. Weed the gardener, no more a weed, would have the courage of a lion and the strength of a bear. Some debate ensued about whether this was one wish or two, while Peterkin the cobbler said that, of all the wishes in the world, he could wish only for his brother to come back. As for Gubrius, the sour-faced chaplain would not reveal what he wished for, though Maisie Grace, unable to resist ribbing him, declared that she thought it might have something to do with Nora. Gubrius flushed scarlet. Nora squealed. There was an argument, embarrassment, exclamation. The doctor, trussed in vines, had just enough freedom to feel inside a pocket of his velvet jacket. Now, what was this? The sonic screwdriver? Well, if he could get it close to that phaser. Maisie Grace snapped, "Enough of this. So what do we do, Peterkin? Just throw him in?" Peterkin's confidence, so high before, was now beginning to ebb. Such is often the way when things we have only dreamed about become suddenly real. Well, I've never actually caught a night dreamer before. "Should we call out to the king?" said Weed. "Tell him our wishes," quizzed Nora. Gubrius moaned. "He'll kill us, I'm sure of it." The doctor gripped the sonic screwdriver. Swivelling round towards the chaplain, that would be the hard part, but not impossible, not if he would not have the chance. Maisie Grace raised her voice, bellowing into the dark opening. "Night Dreamer King, we've got one of your children. Do you hear me, Night Dreamer King? Time to make our dreams come true." At first there was silence, and Nora giggled. Gubrius sniffed. Green, sinister phosphorescence flickered about the cave mouth, then was gone again. Suddenly there was a fearsome rumbling. The players stumbled back. "He's in there," said Peterkin quaveringly. "That's him all right." What does he look like, Peterkin?" said Weed. I've never seen him," was the reply, "only heard him. Oh, but I think he's got a temper." "Listen, couldn't we talk about this? Couldn't we be rational?" The doctor gave up on the sonic screwdriver. "Whatever this mythology of yours might be, I don't much rate the chances of your dreams coming true, do you?" "Don't listen to him," said Maisie Grace. "Night Dreamer, into the cave." A louder roar echoed from the darkness. Weed whimpered. Peterkin sank down. Only Maisie Grace was fearless, grabbing the phaser and shoving the doctor forward. "Night Dreamer King, receive our offering." The doctor plummeted deep into the blackness. Whoa! Weightless, Jo careened in the air. She clutched at branches, clawed at leaves. Despairingly, she looked down towards the TARDIS, standing impassively in the silvery darkness, and could only wish she were back inside it. The trickster Sly was nowhere to be seen. It was as she tried to swim down again, struggling back to the gravity well, that Jo heard a fearsome rumbling. It came from under the ground. Trees shook, winds rustled the darkness, and the great planet of Galaxis Bright, hanging in the sky, appeared to shift and shimmer. The gravity field rippled, seizing Jo once more. She plunged down, but fresh rumblings shivered through the woods, and she recoiled, weightless again, only to collide with a dark figure swimming out from the trees. "Whoa!" They crashed into the gravity well. For a moment, Jo thought she was passing out again. She could barely breathe. Blackness filled her eyes. But this was the blackness of hot, pungent leather. She was pinioned beneath the stranger. Grimacing, Jo struggled to free herself.
I don't suppose anyone ever told you to look where you're going,
she demanded, a little unfairly. Jo gasped as the stranger leapt up. Her new companion was not only dressed all in black, but had few visible features. A visored cap, drawn low, concealed the stranger's eyes, and a phaser gleamed in a gloved hand.
Get up,
came the barked command.
So much for a friendly welcome.
Jo clambered to her feet.
What's wrong with everyone here?
Who are you working for? The Darklings?
What?
Jo gestured to the TARDIS.
That's my spaceship. Well, the Doctor's actually, and I don't suppose you've seen the Doctor, have you?
Keeping the phaser trained on Jo, the stranger inspected the TARDIS, running curious fingers over the little panelled windows of frosted glass and the panel on the door that declared it incongruously to be a police telephone box free for the use of the public.
Our side would never build anything like this,
the stranger murmured.
A dark ship, it has to be.
The phaser prodded at Jo's chin.
I say, you are a spy, aren't you? Tonio told me all about...
Jo began.
Look, I don't know what you're...
Threateningly, the stranger edged forward. Jo stumbled back, but it was as she did so that she found herself clanging into something metallic, hidden by bushes and vines. The sound rang through the clearing like a bell. Just then the stranger cried out, dropping the phaser. But what had prompted this sudden cry was not, Jo realised, the bell-like sound.
What is it?
Jo turned, alarmed. Had Sly come back? It was not Sly. Instead, as if summoned forth by the metallic bong, there had appeared in the clearing a tall woman dressed in flowing, bejewelled robes. The woman had raven black hair, but a strangely kindly face. Smiling, she moved closer to the dark-garbed stranger, and Jo saw, to her astonishment, that the woman's feet were not quite touching the ground. She might have been a vision, a dream. And Jo's surprise could only increase as the figure in leathers first sank to the ground as if in reverence, then flung away the concealing cap, freeing a cascade of raven black hair identical to that of the ghostly woman.
A girl,
Jo breathed.
In disguise.
The girl had no thought for Jo now. Imploringly, she reached up to the visionary lady.
Mother,
she whispered. But just as the girl would have clutched the jewelled gown, the lady disappeared. The girl sank down, sobbing. It was as if, for a moment, she had been promised all the bliss that life could deliver, and now, with the lady gone, she had been left to desolation. Her sobs were hard and bitter. Compassion surged in Jo's heart, and she tried to comfort the stranger who could not, she was convinced at once, be any sort of enemy.
It's a trick. Another cruel trick,
Jo murmured.
Perihelion night. Night dreamers,
gulped the strange girl.
Night dreamers?
The word found an echo in Jo's mind. A disturbing echo. Her companion brushed her eyes. She shook her head.
I'm Rhea, she breathed. But you're no spy. Of course not.
Jo held out her hand.
I'm Jo, and I think you'd better tell me what's going on here.
What could be happening? Swirling colours replaced the blackness. Down, down the Doctor fell, but no longer rapidly. Soon he hovered in a field of strange gravity. Green, fizzing radiation surrounded him. Sound boomed massively against the rocky walls. The place in which he had fallen, he saw, was no ordinary cave, but a labyrinth of subterranean tunnels, twisting and twining in all directions, like the knotty, gnarled branches of an ancient tree. But then came the phantom. All at once, through the sinister phosphorescence, the Doctor saw a gigantic mouth roaring as if to tear apart the night. Drawn inexorably towards it, helpless in the vines that bound his limbs, the Doctor felt his mind fill with vivid, terrible visions. Visions of a creature so powerful that none could escape its thrall. Serpentine and monstrous, alien and evil, the creature rippled immensely beneath the moon's surface. "This is an illusion! A dream!" the Doctor cried. But he was not sure if it was. Gravity surged, crashed. Pinioned against a wall, the Doctor felt the mighty force invade his mind. Faces, places, creatures from his travels flashed all around him, projected outwards by something beyond his control. He fought against the power, but the force was too much for him. Thrashing in an ecstasy of power, the creature struggled to possess the Doctor, to suck the very energies from his brain. The Doctor writhed. He cried out. He called on all the mental powers of a Time Lord. Crackling energies slashed through the vines, and his bonds fell away. But still, the creature would not set him free. "Creature, I defy you! Nightdreamer King, I defy you!" The end came quickly. The roaring that filled the air rose to an unbearable pitch, crashing like 1,000 crazed orchestras, rising all in unison to a shattering crescendo, and the colours collided into a dazzling flash. Borne on waves of mental energy, repelled as if by negative gravity, the Doctor whizzed and crashed through the labyrinth, surging back through tunnel after tunnel, cascading ever further away from the fearsome, enraged being. "Nothing's happening yet," said Weed. Gangling as ever, the gardener struggled to lift a large boulder with his puny matchstick arms. "Never mind your strength," said Nora the cook. "What about my lovely tavern?" "You think it's just going to appear here?" said Maisie Grace, swishing regally in her royal costume. "Or, should I say, appear here? Really, how foolish. In front of this cave." Her manner softened, and her eyes shone with longing. "I told you, my friends, we should all go back to the castle. It may take time, but I think sooner or later we'll find that things just, well, go our way." "That's what you're hoping for, isn't it?" said Nora. "A company of players might land tomorrow, and one of them might discover you while you're doing out his room." The innuendo lingered on the cook's plump lips. "Really, Maisie? Might. "Are you being sarcastic, Nora?" said the chambermaid. "Me, Maisie? Sarcastic?" "I told you this was a bad idea," moaned Gubrius. The chaplain had been doing little more than moan for some time. "It's just not godly, all this wishing nonsense." "And when did you say that?" said Weed. "You didn't have to come," pointed out Maisie Grace. "Oh, don't listen to her," said Nora. "I'm glad you came, Gubrius. You're a good fellow. Not stuck up like some I could mention." Pointedly, she turned away from Maisie Grace. The chaplain smiled just a little. Then he swallowed hard, peering into the cave mouth again. No further sounds had come from within, but the silence out in these dark woods was every bit as eerie. "So what is supposed to happen?" said Nora. "Peterkin? Say, where is Peterkin?" "Well, I never," said Maisie Grace, pointing. Vegetation pressed thickly against the rocky ledge, and the simple cobbler, under a canopy of fronds, had fallen asleep, curled into a ball. Absurdly, he still wore his monster's head. For a moment, his four friends forgot their differences and gazed upon him fondly. "I'm tired too," said Weed. "Very tired." Maisie Grace yawned. So did Gubrius. "But wait, who's this?" Nora said blearily. In their sleepy state, the friends barely registered surprise, let alone alarm, as a little green man suddenly appeared before them. Merrily he skipped between them, and the players could only look on dazed as he launched into a dance, lights sparkling like cinders on the air behind him. Strange music surrounded him as he sang.
My name is Sly, and I'm sure I'm just too bad to mention. But pity me, for cruelty was never my intention.
The dance was a slow one, not sprightly like before. No crazed caperings, no wild posturings, only a wavy, hypnotic rhythm. And as he danced, Sly swerved balletically towards the players, touching the forehead of each, as if in some mysterious, ambiguous benediction. When he was finished, the players all slept. The music died away. Sly pirouetted, clapping his hands. He licked his lips.
Now, what delightful games can I play? The one with, let's see, the Atinati weed. Yes, that's always been one of my favourites.
From the cave came a rumbling, and Sly cowered.
What? Now, master,
He said, disappointed.
no time to play? Poor Sly.
He sighed, and dipping a hand into his pocket, sprinkled green dust over the 5 sleepers. The bodies trembled in the planet light, then slowly vanished.
Goodbye,
Said Sly.
goodbye, fellow captives. But that's terrible,
Joe cried.
Your father sounds like a tyrant. That's just it,
Rhea grimaced.
Once he would never have been this way. When I was a little girl, when Mother was still with us, why, he loved us so much. He was a good man, kind. Now he just retreats to his meditation chamber, and when he appears, it's only to shh. Did you hear something?
Joe glanced round, alarmed.
These woods are full of noises,
Said Rhea.
and night dreamers. That was your mother. Her image sent to taunt me.
Rhea shuddered.
Funny, I'd never quite believed it. Tales my old nurse used to tell, that's what I thought.
Her voice dropped to a whisper.
And now I know they were all true.
Joe would have pressed her new friend to say more, but Rhea sprang up.
Come on, you can help me with the Vorgon ray. What is it exactly?
Joe asked. Rhea stripped vegetation from the lightship, revealing a bright curve of hull marked with geometric designs. Looking for the hatch, she flung back absently,
The ray. Oh, it makes vibrations in metal, sound waves. Now, if I could only attune it to the castle, I could shake it to the ground.
Joe was aghast.
You couldn't. The castle's metal, of course I could. I mean, you wouldn't. Your father's castle. I will,
Rhea said simply,
if Tonio's not set free.
and opening a panel in the lightship's hull, she scrambled inside. Joe hung back, troubled. How she wished the doctor were here. But there was hardly any need to wonder what had happened to him. Joe had been caught up in the doctor's adventures for too long not to be able to take a good guess. No doubt he had got himself mixed up in this business somehow, and dangerously too. Perhaps at this very moment he was in the castle. If only he were all right.
Trust the doctor, Joe said aloud. Oh, I knew we were in serious trouble the moment I saw that wretched Sly.
What? Rhea's dark head appeared again in the hatchway. Joe waved her back.
Nothing. Well, just something about Sly. This funny little man dressed all in green.
You've seen him? Rhea burst out.
Well, yes, he was here, and Joe, you don't know what this means.
Bewildered, Joe could only agree that she did not. Rhea tried to explain. Scrambling from the lightship, the leather-clad girl paced anxiously, spilling out an old, confused legend that her nurse had once told her. Sly, it seemed, or Green Sly, was a special minion of the Nightdreamer King, his particular avatar in the world of the unsleeping, casting seeds around him of confusion and chaos, mischief and misery. Usually the devilish little sprite kept himself invisible, fading into the green of the woods. To see him, actually see him, was a portent.
Of what?
Joe urged.
We're doomed,
Rhea whispered.
That's nonsense,
said Joe.
I can't believe.
In truth, Joe was not sure what she believed. After all, she was the one who had seen Sly, and she was the one who had felt his power. She was about to ask her new friend to tell her more, when suddenly Rhea cried out. But the cry this time was one of joy. Her face filled with wonderment, Rhea pointed into the silvery darkness, and Joe swiveled round to see, swimming gracefully through the sky, a lithe young man with waving blonde hair, dressed in a costume of robes and golden bands. Softly, he descended into the gravity well. At the sight of Rhea, the regal young man was astonished and joyous too.
Tonio!
She rushed to him.
My love, but how?
I escaped. The guards.
And I, oh, but we're free, free.
The lovers embraced, forgetting all else.
This is like a dream,
Rhea breathed. Enchanted by the sight of them, for a moment Joe could only enjoy their happiness. A plangent chord sounded in her heart, like music from afar, and she thought what a splendid thing it must be to have such a lover. Again she remembered Latep, the young Tharl on Spiridon, who had helped defeat the Daleks, and wondered if she should have gone with him after all. But no. It had been only a kind of dream, that was all. Then Joe felt a chill. Her next words were blundering, abrupt.
Rhea, you're sure this isn't...
Isn't what? Rhea turned to her.
A dream. Before, with your mother.
No, no. Laughing, Rhea dismissed Joe's fears. Tonio, this is Joe, a traveller from... She was going to help me with the Vorgon Ray, but now... Joe, don't look so concerned. Tonio's real. I can feel him in my arms.
Then what about Sly?
Joe wondered. And there was something else.
What about Doom?
With a forced smile, she indicated the lightship.
So, what now then? You two are just going to take off in that funny little ship of yours, are you?
Eagerness shone in Tonio's eyes, but Rhea's face fell. It's not that simple.
Father, look!
Joe pointed to the edge of the clearing. Perihelion night, as if endowed with its own strange volition, seemed determined to spring on them one surprise after another. And this was a very strange surprise indeed. Peering round the trunk of a tree was a most peculiar face, knobbly, orange, and decidedly inhuman.
A monster,
breathed Rhea, but her alarm was short-lived, and she laughed as the monster, his body incongruous against his bulbous head, scuttled forward, bowed ineptly, and knelt down before her. Joe and Tonio exchanged glances. Some monster, said Tonio. Joe said,
It's obviously only a man in a suit.
And, said Rhea, I think I know who he is. Tonio, remember when you broke the strap of your sandal? This is Peterkin the cobbler. I'm sure of it. Peterkin? In reply, the cobbler only gestured to the trees, summoning forth his four companions. In a trice, kneeling beside him, there was a middle-aged princess with a cardboard tiara, a man in a mouse mask, a plump, simpering fairy, and a miserable-looking fellow in a clerical collar, covered in scraps of prickly ivy.
Maisie Grace,
laughed Rhea.
Weed, Nora, Gubrius.
Tonio, they've come to wish us well. As if to prove this, the players now rose as one and began to dance, linking hands, cavorting around Rhea, Tonio, and Joe. Music filled the air, and as they danced, they sang. On perihelion night, sweet perihelion night, weave a circle in the planet light that shines so bright above to bless, bless, bless your dreams of love. Like soft entangling ribbons, the song wound round them, filling the clearing with its undulating rhythms. Her eyelids fluttering, Jo felt a deep abiding of well-being, as if the love she had wished for herself moments earlier, half in envy, half in sadness, had enfolded her already in its warm, intense embrace. To bless, bless, bless your dreams of love. It was enchanting. Too enchanting. Only too late did Jo see the green cinders sparkling round the feet of the players. "Night dreamers," she whispered. "They've become night dreamers." Tauntingly, the song wound on. Already, Rhea and Tonio had sunk down in the grass, like curlicues of smoke diminishing, fading into the embers of a dying fire. Smiling, they fell into a happy sleep. Then Jo sank down too. The Doctor swam through blackness. At last, kicking against a projecting rock, he propelled himself into a vertical shaft, cutting through the labyrinth of underground caves. Up and up he rose, in a gravity vacuum, the sinister phosphorescence vanishing behind him. Now, hands flailing over his head, the Doctor felt an obstruction. It was something made of metal. A trapdoor, a hatch. There were bolts, thick and heavy. He groped for the sonic screwdriver, applying it to the bolts. In weightless darkness, this was a difficult task. More than once his cloak got in the way, billowing up around his fumbling hands. When the bolts gave way at last, the Doctor struggled hard to shift the hatch. But what would he find on the other side? There was a shimmer, soft and golden like candlelight. His strength almost gone, the Doctor hoisted himself into a curious chamber, vast but cluttered like a basement. Indeed, he supposed he was in the very bowels of the castle, a place of old, cracking leather, of mildew and dust. Wonderingly, he looked around him. There were hunched, dim shapes of sofas and chairs. There were chests and boxes. There were curtains and garments draping mustily from the low ceiling. Cobwebs hung from walls made of metal. And then there were the mannequins. Moving carefully, the Doctor inspected first one, then another of the many human figures propped waxily by the walls, eyelids closed like inert, deathly sleepers. The light was dim, but he saw that some were dressed as servants, some as fine courtiers. There were old men, boys, beautiful women. What could be the point of these elaborate dolls? Then the Doctor had a chilling thought. In jewel-encrusted finery, spread out on a chaise-longue, lay the languid figure of a beautiful woman with long, flowing, raven-black hair. The Doctor touched a hand to her cheek. He felt her wrist. "Dead?" he murmured. "Or sleeping?" Something clattered to the floor. He turned sharply, but the silence resumed. A mouse? A rat? Cautiously, the Doctor parted one faded, velvety curtain, then another. Moving past a carved screen, he made for the source of the diffuse golden light. The light, pulsing from lanterns in the floor, surrounded an old man in a throne-like chair, perched high upon a rounded dais. The Doctor's eyes travelled over the flowing beard, the ornate robes. Curiously, he ascended the dais's steps, picking up a gnarled, long-nailed hand. "Asleep," murmured the Doctor, "and dreaming?" Then what, he wondered, could be the link between this chamber and the mysterious creature he had seen below? From the dais he turned back to survey the many sleepers, dustily propped up or lying amongst the debris. That was when he saw the 5 familiar figures, leaning askew against an old chest, like puppets with cut strings, or toys against a toy box left out to languish. Princess, fairy, monster, mouse. The one in the clerical collar was there too, a wreath of ivy, like an ironic prize, draped around his neck. "But so soon?" murmured the doctor. "What could possibly have happened? And how?" The eyelids of the 5 players flickered restlessly, as if they were deep in the world of dreams. Fascinated, the doctor stood pondering, and in his distraction he did not see when the old man behind him snapped his eyes open, nor when one of the claw-like hands twitched, then wriggled, its jewel-encrusted fingers flashing in the light. The doctor paced across the dais, thinking hard. He tapped his chin. He laced his fingers. Then came the voice, booming suddenly, "Who dares disturb my meditation?" The doctor whirled round. He would have sprung back, but already Duke Altero had grabbed him, clutching him with a grip like iron. The dais rose from the floor. The doctor struggled, but his assailant had taken him off guard. And this was no ordinary weak old man. Inhuman fire blazed in Duke Altero's eyes. A force beyond human ability possessed his limbs as the low ceiling opened and the dais emerged with dizzying swiftness into the vast, chilly presence chamber above, shimmering with electro-tapers and billowing ancient tapestries. Servants cried out. Milling courtiers scurried back, alarmed. "Guards!" cried Duke Altero. "Guards!" The doctor wrenched free from the iron grip. He leapt down from the dais, sprawled to the iron-flagged floor, scrambled up, but already the dark-garbed robes surrounded him, sinister in their visored caps, phasers at the ready, and all the doctor could do was raise his hands. Duke Altero thundered. "This stranger has disturbed my meditation. Undoubtedly, he is an agent from Galaxis Bright, a prying, lying lackey of Emperor Exis Umain, bent on discovering the secrets of Verd. Now, look here, old chap," the doctor began. He would have no chance to finish. Again the Duke's voice boomed out, wilder than before, and all around the presence chamber, courtiers and servants sank down in cringing, terrified abasement. "Lock him up!" cried the Duke. "Prince Tonio must be at the bottom of this. Why, his treachery is worse than I had believed, worse than I could have imagined, and to think I would have shown mercy. In the morning he shall receive his fit and proper punishment, and so shall this stranger." The Duke paused, gazing around him with eyes like searing coals. "And what punishment? Fools! Is there any who asks what punishment, when the only fitting punishment is death, death, death?" His voice cracked into crazed high laughter.